Ways and Means. I'm also the Allston-Brighton District City Council. Today is Tuesday, June 4th. I'd like to remind folks this is a public hearing, both being broadcast live and recorded for future viewing on Comcast Channel 8, RCN 82, Verizon 1964, and streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV. I'd ask folks in the chamber to silence their electronic devices. This is a public hearing. I have sign-in sheets off to my left. I ask that you sign in, state your name, any affiliation, and what aspect of the budget you'd like to speak on. We strongly encourage residents, whether here in the chamber or at home, to take a moment to get involved in our budget process. And you can also email us at ccc.wm@boston.gov. And we are here today regarding dockets 0622 through 0625. Orders for the FY20 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations, annual appropriation for the school department, appropriation for other post-employment benefits, and appropriation for certain transportation and public realm improvements, as well as dockets 0626 through 0628, capital budget appropriations, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. I am joined by several of my colleagues. To my far left, in order of their arrival, Councilor at Large Althea Garrison. To my immediate left, Vice Chairman of Ways and Means, Councilor Tim McCarthy. Again, to my far left, my friend from South Boston, Councilor Ed Flynn, and my friend from Back Bay, Councilor Josh Sakam, to my far right. I have several people. I'll get right into public testimony. Now, folks did not check the box, so I'm going to call you in order of signing up, and if you do wish to testify, just go right to that microphone there. So Ruby Reyes is first, Tafani Jackson, and Monty Neal. And again, if you want to specify what part of the budget, if at all, if there's a part that you want to speak to.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ruby Reyes. I'm the Boston Education Justice Alliance Director, resident of Dorchester District 4, and I'm here to talk about the Boston Public Schools budget cuts. BEJA represents parents, students, and teachers working to improve the Boston Public Schools. BEJA is requesting an additional $20 million to be added to the Boston Public Schools budget this year to ensure there are no school program cuts and to add student-facing and support staff to school communities. This year's budget proposals would create significant budget shortfalls to 44% of BPS schools. East Boston High alone will experience a cut of over $1 million. East Boston as a whole will experience a loss of over $2 million, and Dorchester will lose approximately $1.5 million in school funding. The residents of these communities are primarily Black and Latino. These budget shortfalls also come on the heels of school committee voting to close 2 schools in the West Roxbury Educational Complex, while the Rogers School in Hyde Park has been returned to the city as surplus property. The Rogers School in Hyde Park is slated to become luxury housing as our children lose their schools, developers gain properties. Each year, the mayor increases BPS's budget between 2% and 4%, but this does not meet the rising costs of inflation. Schools that experience no official loss are feeling a shortfall because their budget increase does not account for inflation. Coupled with too little state aid, Boston faces inadequate funding for all of our schools. Every student should have an educational experience in which they feel safe and cared for and can participate in high-quality learning environments. In the current system, when one school wins, another experiences a cut. And this is the first step to school closure. This creates a culture where surviving becomes winning at another school's expense. BPS further perpetuates the sick culture, and that it asks schools that have shrinking budgets to showcase how great their resources are in order to win a new building or get repairs to their current space. This culture is not safe or healthy for children, but it is being set as a standard by the district and reinforced by inadequate increases to school budgets at the city level. Beja was excited to hear about the gains won by the Boston Teachers Union, including full-time nurses in every school and increasing the number of mental health staff. Despite and with these gains, only half of Boston Public Schools will have a full-time mental health staff person. That means that only half of BPS students will have access to these much-needed social and emotional support systems. Boston is an increasingly rich city. Beja asks that you tax the wealth in order to invest in our children. There is an opportunity to fund all of our schools so that all of our students and residents are able to have access to quality, well-resourced education. This year, the council can fund $20 million more by tapping the parking ticket fund. Beja also asks that the council continue to push our private neighbors, colleges and universities to pay their payment in lieu of taxes commitments. Together, they now owe over $77 million. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Tiomo, members of the council. Thank you. My name is Monty Neal. I live in Jamaica Plain, and I'm a member of the Boston Education Justice Alliance, or BEJA, and Citizens for Public Schools. BEJA, as my colleague Ruby just pointed out, has requested that the City Council ensure an increase of $20 million in this year's school department budget. You will hear today from others about the pressing needs of their schools. Without that $20 million, the children in many schools will suffer serious program cuts. More immediate funding, in addition to the important gains in nurses and counselors won by the Boston Teachers Union, is necessary to stave off these cuts. But Boston's weighted student formula is also part of the problem. The formula establishes far too small a base for adequate staffing. As a result, many schools lack necessary programs, and schools with small declines in population suffer too many necessary program cuts. BEJA believes that weighted student formula must change to be built on top of a necessary base. Such a base would ensure that every school have at least the following: strong, culturally relevant academic programs, including the arts and sciences with laboratories, librarians, nurses, counselors, mental health and social emotional support professionals, adequate English language learner and student with disability professional and paraprofessional pupil services staff to ensure successful full inclusion programs, and staff in every school dedicated to building relations with resource providers and parents to serve students and their families, as in BEJA's proposed hub schools. High quality food and drinkable water, and sound facilities in good repair to facilitate effective learning. Too many of our schools lack one or most of these. We in BEJA say that Boston needs a different process to determine school funding. We need to build, with extensive community participation, a model of what our children actually need to complete high school ready to be thriving, active, engaged adults in what is sure to be an uncertain future as our children face environmental crises, ongoing racism, and deepening economic inequality. The city should then construct a plan to get from here to there quickly. That plan will require that the city tax the rapidly growing wealthy and corporate sectors to fund education for the children and communities that economic development is leaving behind. BEJA will be active in this process. We seek to work with the Superintendent Caselius, the school committee, the mayor, and the city council, as well as the community, to rethink and redesign the purpose and funding of public education in Boston. For this year, we seek a modest down payment of $20 million to build toward that better future. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've been joined by my friend from Jamaica Plain, Councilor Matt O'Malley.
Pardon?
I have a parent who submitted testimony to read on her behalf.
Okay.
She's not able to be here today because she's at work. Hello, my name is Tiffany Jackson. I'm a mother of two wonderful people, my son Trayvon and daughter Shania, who's 13 and in the 7th grade. I was compelled to write this testimony today because my daughter Shania was recently diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, type 1. April 4th is a day I will never forget, and neither will she. If you are familiar with this type of incurable chronic condition, please listen as if you were a mother, father, uncle, brother, sister, or guardian. As I picked my perfectly healthy daughter up from school on Thursday, April 4th, because she was not feeling well, I decided to take her to the doctor to see what was going on, never thinking that she would be rushed to Children's Hospital and where she would be out of nowhere diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a chronic condition. Her pancreas just stopped making insulin, something we all have and a vital function automatically produced by our body for us to live. Hearing that now to live, my daughter's body no longer does what it should on its own, and she will be insulin dependent for the rest of her life. She will need insulin to eat carbohydrates. Have you ever had to calculate the food that you ate every day to survive? Have you ever had to think about the carbohydrates you eat? When you're out at home, at a social event, in school, and that you need to inject yourself several times a day just to eat. Think back to when you were 13. Well, this is my daughter's life now. Injections for food, injections to correct her blood sugar, injections to maintain her blood sugar, injections to survive. Could you imagine the life adjustment that this requires? I thank God every day that there are two full-time nurses at my daughter's school, one that I speak with every single day. My daughter goes to the nurse 5 to 8 times a day because her blood sugar is low. She's in a stage they call the honeymoon phase, and she could remain in that phase for up to 2 years. The honeymoon stage is where her blood sugar levels fluctuate constantly, but the scary part are the lows. One low and my daughter could die. Let me repeat so you fully understand what I said. 1 low blood sugar and my daughter could die. If she did not have the 2 full-time phenomenal nurses she has, I have no idea what I would have done. I'm a working full-time mother and businesswoman. I speak with Shania's nursing team daily to go over her numbers and brainstorm why she drops low several times a day and how we should adjust her numbers. I have described a small portion of the effort and dedication it takes from those nurses to keep my child safe and her mother calm and able to work. I never worry about my daughter's health and safety while she's at school. I know the nurses are there on top of her needs. They're always available and in close communication. Therefore, I applaud the members of the Boston Teachers Union and school committee for working so hard to increase the number of full-time nurses in their contract negotiations. Just think, you may have just saved a life by providing a full-time nurse for every child in every school. What a great move in the right direction. However, I challenge you not to stop there. Continue to save children's lives and support the families you represent. I'm confident that you will continue to do honorable and moral work. I ask you as a mother, employee, businesswoman, and social justice advocate if you would increase the BPS budget by $20 million additional dollars to further support the education and whole child and families in year 2019-2020. $20 million will support these families by ensuring that students do not have school budget cuts this year. The increase in mental health staff will only provide support staff to half of the schools in BPS. Students and families deserve safe and healthy schools. Thank you, Tiffany Jackson.
Thank you. Linda Freeman and Al Vega.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Linda Freeman. I'm in Roxbury. I have a son in the BPS, and he's at Boston Green Academy, and he's one of the in the Learning for Independence program. He's, as it's indicated, he's a SPED student. I'm here on behalf of all our students with disabilities and those who are ELL. It is vitally important to fund those as well. When you don't have a student with disabilities or a child and a student who is ELL, then you may not understand the complex difficulties that parents go through and guardians go through and what our staff goes through. It's better to have the proper funding to take care of the resources that are needed for our staff and our paras and all involved, including our nurses who also have to administer the prescriptions and medicines for some of our students. Some of our students are in complex medical apparatus as well. If you have no understanding of it, you have to observe. I've observed from years ago a student who had complex disability and was terminally ill. And due to the humanities of Boston Public Schools, they allowed this student to remain at that school because he had a terminal illness. They wanted to transfer him, and it would have just escalated his demise. But for all our other students, for all our rest of our students with disabilities and who are ELL, it's hard enough to feel like you're excluded, but to keep them included in inclusion, the proper supports need to be there, and with that comes with the resources. So, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Al Vega. I'm the Director of Policy and Programs at MassCosh, the Massachusetts Coalition for Occupational Safety and Health. I'm also a longtime resident, born and raised in Jamaica Plain. Our organization is also members of the Boston Educational Justice Alliance. For over 20 years, we have worked with the Boston Public Schools through our Healthy Schools initiative as a way to create awareness among the school community and public about indoor air quality issues, overall environmental health within our school buildings, and sharing solutions and recommendations on how to fix both short-term and long-term problems that we see firsthand. Although we've made many strides towards improving schools with the use of green cleaners, required annual environmental audits, and policies such as integrated pest management to reduce infestations, we still face an uphill battle when it comes to giving schools the much-needed funds to provide the proper levels of maintenance to keep schools healthy and clean. The list of major repairs needed to eradicate many of the problems we see throughout the system also continue to grow year after year. We know what slashing of these budgets does to schools, attempting to provide all of the resources needed to ensure our kids are getting the best education in buildings that ultimately may negatively impact their health in the long run. The proposed budget does not take into account all of these concerns, and schools have already been struggling to do more with less, particularly after cuts that started during the economic crisis of more than a decade ago. Unfortunately, there are many who do not simply understand the true impact of that decision to families and the communities across our city. We must be cognizant of what continued deficit of public dollars will mean to our public school infrastructure, and that we will continue sending our students and teachers to dilapidated and inadequately maintained buildings that may elevate the potential of those occupants of becoming sick or the risk of being exposed to hazards that should not be found in our schools. We believe now is a time to stop the bleeding of resources and ensure that schools across the city do not have to choose between providing textbooks and tablets or fixing that leaky roof and upgrading a heating system. We will never improve these conditions if we continue to see less custodians, a lack of needed maintenance, or capital repair projects being put on hold for an indefinite number of years. It will be difficult to ensure that we have the most highly educated students and a strong and motivated cadre of teachers and staff while the buildings they spent most of their lives in continue crumbling around them while we ignore their pleas to improve these conditions. Climate change issues are already making things worse, and the need for air conditioning in all buildings and heat stress policies are something that other cities and districts around the country are focused on already to be proactive as conditions continue to get more extreme. And while we are hopeful that the city and the district are acknowledging some of these issues in the Build BPS 10 Years Facilities Master Plan, we are very concerned that there is a lack of transparency and true community engagement needed to ensure that we see the buildings and educational spaces that our communities and families want and need. The business as usual mentality must stop, and we must properly maintain all of our buildings and reduce the $1 billion+ worth of capital repairs projects that our schools need to be dealt with in a timely and just manner to avoid the fate of schools like the West Roxbury Educational Complex and the school communities there. We know that they had been asking for help for years on this, and no one was able to do enough, and now students and families as well as teachers are scrambling to figure out what to do next. We can't keep approving a budget like this that will only force everyone else to continue fighting each other for what's left of the pie. What we have seen over the last few years is not working, and you have heard or will be hearing from many others here about why we encourage you to vote no on this budget as it stands, and at a minimum ask for an additional $20 million to help schools with this and numerous other problems created by the underfunding of our district. Ultimately, our facilities are just one of the many areas we must be more vigilant around so that students and teachers can live, work, and play in an environment that is safe and healthy for all. And this will only be possible when we properly invest in all our schools, which should be a priority for Mayor Walsh and all members of the City Council with us here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Noni Rodriguez, Nancy? Sorry.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Noemí Rodríguez y vivo en East Boston por 7 años.
My name is Noemi Rodriguez. I live in East Boston for the past 7 years.
Soy una madre de 3 hijos, soy madre soltera
I'm a mother of 3 children, and I'm a single mother.
y ahora estoy aquí porque quiero luchar por un futuro por mis hijos debido a la falta de recursos que está afectando a nosotros como padres.
I'm here today to fight for my children and their future and the lack of resources for us as parents and for their education.
Tengo un niño bajo la especialidad de un IP que tiene un déficit de atención e hiperactividad y tengo otro también con otro IP.
I have one son who's on an IEP for attention deficit disorder, and I have another son who's also on an IEP.
Hay algo que me está preocupando como madre de familia,
There's something that's really troublesome for me as a mother of a family,
porque en la escuela donde está mi hijo bajo el IP, que tiene déficit de atención e hiperactividad,
because the child that I have that has attention deficit disorder at his school,
se ha ido la persona que hace el ejercicio con su mente, el que trabajaba para ejercitar su cerebro,
the person that helped him with his kind of brain patterns and behavioral patterns is leaving the school.
y eso es una preocupación para mí como madre, porque quiero un mejor futuro para mis hijos.
That is a huge, troublesome problem for me because I want a better future for my son and for my children.
No quisiera que mis hijos siempre estuvieran con medicamentos, quisiera que ellos tuvieran la oportunidad de estar por lo menos en una escuela de artes,
I don't want my children to be on medication. I want them to have access to things that, like arts in the schools,
o sea, música o algún tipo de deporte que esté bajo el respaldo de las escuelas públicas.
or music, or some other process that is responsible for, that is a part of the Boston Public Schools programming.
La otra parte es el transporte.
The other part is transportation.
Esa es la preocupación más grande de firmar un IP y buscar una persona que sea como monitor para estos niños y muchas veces estos monitores no están dentro del bus.
That's a huge part of an IEP process, is finding someone to be a monitor on the bus, and many times there aren't bus monitors on the buses.
Y eso también es parte de nuestra preocupación porque nosotros firmamos un documento donde hacemos buscar un monitor para que pueda acompañar a nuestros hijos por el déficit que ellos encuentran.
And that's also a huge problem for us because we signed for an IEP that asks for a bus monitor to take care of our children that have attention deficit disorder.
Y lo que nosotros buscamos como padres es una seguridad para nuestros hijos. No queremos que vaya a suceder una desgracia.
And what we look for as parents is safety for our children so that nothing bad happens.
Para mí no es fácil desarrollar ese papel de madre y padre y estar pendiente de mis hijos cuando yo sé que hay falta de recursos dentro de las escuelas, el transporte. Esto es como un impacto para nosotros.
Can you say, ¿lo puedes decir otra vez?
Que este es un impacto porque estoy luchando como madre y padre para los niños.
This is a huge impact on my family because I'm fighting as a mother and a father for my family, and I know that cuts are being made in the Boston Public Schools around these resources as well as transportation.
y soy una madre de bajos recursos que está luchando y trabajando para sostener la familia y ahora me encuentro con esta situación de las escuelas y es terrible para mí estar pasando esto.
And I'm a person that is of low income, and I'm fighting and working as a mother and parent and a family. And it's hard for me to deal with these types of resource cuts in the Boston Public Schools or in education.
Gracias a Dios tenemos unos maestros que se proponen ayudarnos a representarnos, pero es difícil para ellos poder cubrir las necesidades y los recursos de las escuelas.
And I thank God that there are teachers that are fighting and working for our children, but it is hard for them to recuperate these resources for our kids.
Gracias por escucharme.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Kalita Smalls? And we've been joined by my friend from Dorchester, Councilor Frank Baker.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Kalita, and I work for the Boston Teachers Union. I'm a staff person there. I'm an organizer there and responsible for moving our entire base around the issues that matter to my members the most. A number of them are going to try to get here today to speak to you very directly about the issues and concerns they have around the cuts that happen to our schools every single year that we then have to fight for more resources to put back so that they can adequately do the best job that they can in the system with the young people that we have, because they deserve us bringing our best selves into everything. I am a product of Boston Public Schools. I've lived in Boston all of my life, and I raised a child who graduated from Madison Park High School. So I understand very deeply just what some of the problems are and the constraints around it that we have to face. But we literally don't have avenues to try and address the tremendous amount of issues that happen in our schools every single year. This is only one of the very few ways that we have to ask you to really pay attention to making sure that our young people have the things that they deserve to learn well in the classroom. Our funding structures, both statewide and locally, are flawed, and they continue to be flawed, and they shortchange our children. Until that gets fixed, you will see us here and in other spaces advocating hard for what we believe they deserve. We just won a tentative agreement as a contract, as a teachers union. We're very excited about that TA. It took us 18 months to get there because we refused to walk away from that table without what we thought would really dramatically change the reality and the quality of the education being able to be done in the classroom. We did not get everything we wanted in that contract. That contract hasn't even been approved yet. Our members will look at that next week, and we hope that we can move forward with it. There are other things that our schools need desperately that we believe you have the power and the control over the budget to give them. That's money. Right now, it's $20 million. Understand that that $20 million helps keep us afloat. It doesn't fix the fundamental things that are wrong with our system. This is us asking you for another Band-Aid so as many of our young people as possible can make it through this next school year. Our systems are deeply flawed, and we need to address those challenges. So this $20 million, while it is very important and will add value into the system, it's still not enough. And so we implore you to take advantage of the authority and access you have right now to help our school system in this year as much as possible, and then come back together and actually look seriously at the weighted student formula, at the funding cycle, and the way the state funds public education, and fix the problems that are broken there, because that's ultimately what it is that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Marr? Did I say it wrong? Tim Marr? I'm here. I didn't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you. Thanks. All right, at this point, so that's everybody. So that's everyone that wished to testify to date. I'm going to take a brief recess, and we'll be back in the chamber when there are more speakers. Oh, right here, David.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. That should be live, I think.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, my name's David Russell. I'm a teacher at McKinley South End Academy since 1988. And just give a brief personal account of the need for more money. We routinely dig into our pockets for all kinds of things. At a meeting yesterday, we were planning our end-of-the-year activities. We have an oratory contest. It's going to be the 20th annual one. It's been a wonderful event where kids present poems, and we have a group of judges that come in, and we offer some prizes. We pay for it. That's the only way it can happen. We have a field day at the end of every year. We had a meeting yesterday to make plans for that. We all pay for that. That's just ordinary. A couple years ago, I did a survey in the spring of staff just to try to get a little more numbers on. Okay, so we routinely pull out our wallets. How much does that come to? And with incomplete results, we got $23,000 and something dollars that have been spent by staff. And we're a fairly small school, about 75 staff, and yeah, it's. And we're not missing meals, from doing this, so we do it because the choice is there's things that the kids need, either they don't get them or we pay for them, and different of us to different extents can. And of course, that's not the best for the kids because it's not guaranteed. Not everybody can or will, do that depending on personal circumstances. So. Just a little personal plea here from experience. At our school, we have. I'm not sure how, quite a few decades old, grating over our windows, so sort of metal bars for security. It's all rusted, and the windows haven't been washed in, who knows how long, because they're locked on and don't get opened. And the kids it feels to the kids like, okay, we're in prison. Of course, they weren't there to lock the kids in there, for security on the first floor, to stop break-ins. But it gives the feeling of rundown. The institution without value, and without the kids even thinking about that or consciously considering it, it feels like a place that's not of value. And we work our best to put things together for the kids. Again, picking up our own wallets to pay for things. A couple years ago, a teacher was transferred to a classroom that had no furniture. So he said, okay, let me bring in my saw, get some wood, start building some tables. And we ended up finding from a local church and other sources furniture, but it was, the kids are coming, you got an empty room, what are you going to do? So, that's not a typical story, but not, it didn't cause a wildfire of indignation in the school because, we take care of what we got to take care of. When I got my first classroom, I was brought in there and I said, oh, gee, there's no clock. No, it's not, etc. Went to Bradley's and, bought a whole bunch of things. 33 years later, my clock in my room, there's another one I purchased. So, that's routine, ordinary, and not in the best interest of the kids. So that's my basic story.
Thank you, Dave. Folks did not check the box, but Ariel Bronze and Caroline Ballou.
I wanted to share testimony on behalf of Ariel Bronze.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the City Council. My name is Ariel Brands. I live in District 6 and work at St. Stephen's Youth Programs in District 2. St. Stephen's Youth Programs has had a decade-long partnership with the Blackstone School. 7 years ago, the school was placed in turnaround status, and St. Stephen's Youth Programs played a critical role in the school's improvement plan. We revived the school's 12,000 title lending library and continue to fund a library coordinator who runs the library and coordinates a team of library volunteers. Initially, our collaborative effort was successful, and the school met all the goals of its turnaround plan and was promoted into innovation status. However, as the additional funding for the turnaround process ended, nearly $1 million in support had to be cut from the school's budget, and administrative transitions have continued. There have been 7 principals since the turnaround progress began. The district has systematically disinvested from the school. This year, due to yet another shift in status, the school faced a budget gap of over $500,000. While strong parent-teacher advocacy has restored some of the funding and allowed the school to keep several critical positions, including a counselor and family engagement specialist, the school still faces significant barriers to providing holistic student support. The school is losing 2 community field coordinators and several partnerships, including City Year. They are also missing an inclusion stand coordinator. And while we recognize that 1 counselor is more than many BPS schools are allotted, it is vastly insufficient to meet the needs of nearly 600 high-need students. St. Stephen's has a deep commitment to the Blackstone School, and we hope that you will demonstrate your commitment as well by restoring the remaining funding for missing positions and partnerships at Blackstone. We also ask that you add $20 million to the overall BPS budget to prevent devastating losses at other schools as well. We hope that together we can provide our students with the education they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Caroline Blue. I work at East Boston High School. I've been there for 11 years. And I just wanted to chat a little bit about the population of our school is 81% English language learners. And we do not have the sort of staffing as far as like nurses and therapists to provide our students who are coming up, a lot of them with traumatic experiences, that as Ariel mentioned, the holistic student support. We used to have the health center at our school. That was an invaluable resource. It's no longer able to be there. And we also used to have psychologist interns that would speak with the students, be able to provide that sort of support. And that's no longer there either. Our students really need that kind of support. If they don't get it, often the teacher is asked to sort of fill in those kind of areas. So I too am requesting that $20 million for the budget so that we can not, our students can receive those services that they so desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Council will be in recess. A couple of folks. I have Eileen Carver. Hi. You can make your way to that microphone right there.
My name is Eileen Carver. I teach 2nd grade at the Dudley Street Neighborhood School in Roxbury. I've been working in the Boston Public Schools since the early 1990s and have 2 children who are Boston Public School graduates. This is a very busy time of year for teachers. We're assessing the progress our students have made over this school year, writing report cards, and doing all we can to support our students in this time of major transition with summer and the end of school approaching fast. I made the decision to come to testify because I believe it is so important that city councilors understand what budget cuts mean to our children on the classroom level. For every dollar that is cut from a school budget, there is a cost in terms of academic and social emotional growth for our students. At the Dudley Street School where I work, for the next school year, we have to cut 1 learning specialist, and our full-time social worker is being reduced to part-time. What does this mean? In our 2nd grade classrooms, we have many students who started the year significantly below grade level. Some of these students already made more than a year's worth of reading progress as of our spring assessments, what we did in March, and they are continuing to grow as we now assess their reading progress at the end of the school year. They were able to make this progress because of the combined efforts of classroom teachers and learning specialists who teamed together to meet each student where they were at and provide the precise instruction they needed. Next year, our ability to do this work will be diminished because our team will have shrunk. We know what happens to students who do not receive the specialized instruction they need in the younger grades. Year after year, these students fall further behind and their self-esteem plummets. Second graders feel blue when they are unable to access the chapter books that many of their peers can read. When third, fourth, fifth, and middle school students can't read on grade level, it's a disaster and leads to students giving up, being pushed out, and fueling the school-to-prison pipeline. We are also cutting the hours of the social worker at my school. Why does this matter? There are several key ingredients to effective learning. One is teachers being prepared with excellent instruction. This is our responsibility as teachers, and we do everything within our power to carry it out. Another critical piece to student learning is students being emotionally ready to access the instruction we prepare. In my second grade classroom, I have 2 students who have been threatening to hurt their own bodies because of emotional distress. I have another student whose physical home has been destroyed by a mentally ill family member, and his ability to sleep safely is threatened nightly. This year, these students receive support from our school social worker. Next year, they may not. This year, these students are making significant academic progress. What will happen next year? Your decisions on how we spend money in the city of Boston will have major implications for the life chances of children in our city. Our children are brilliant, capable, and as full of dreams as children anywhere. Their ability to achieve and to exercise the self-determination they have a right to depends on the resources available in our schools. As Ms. Tanisha Sullivan, president of the NAACP, has stated, our students face trauma that grows out of violence, poverty, racism, and immigration struggles. We need the city of Boston to allocate $20 million more so we can meet both the academic and social emotional needs of our students. We need this money so our students have the schools they deserve. Nothing is more important to our future in our neighborhoods, our city, our country, and the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa Bourne? Oh, okay. Thanks. All right, so that was it. Huh? Doesn't? Oh, yeah. Council will be in recess. Public testimony. Today's public hearing for public testimony regarding dockets 0622 to 0625 and dockets 0626 through 0628. We are hereby adjourned.